Hi everyone, I'm honored to be speaking to you today, the incredible people who are keeping the UK on the move, COVID or no COVID. Thank you so much for having me here, and that too on a day super important to me. So, first things first, happy Women's Day to all of you. I really appreciate your department for hosting this event to talk about the transport needs of women in particular. It amazes me that we're often talking about technology and infrastructure at mobility events and not people. We're even offering products and services without understanding and adequately addressing the needs of at least half of the world's population. So I'm glad that today we're talking about transport for women. So as you can see, my presentation is about putting women at the forefront of new mobility. So new mobility is about the intersection of new technologies and new and existing business models and includes everything from self-driving and electric vehicles to ride-hailing and so much more. But in this presentation, I'll be focusing on ride-sharing for women. The need for personal mobility and ride-sharing is of course growing with the rise in urbanization and the decline in car ownership. Ride-sharing is already available in over 10,000 cities across the globe. In 2017 alone, 16 billion trips were completed by ride-hailing users worldwide, and this included over 8 million people in the UK. The user base is still growing, and current estimates anticipate that by 2025, the rideshare market size would be approaching $218 billion. All of this sounds promising, right? But let's face it, the rideshare economy has failed to provide equal opportunity to women, both as riders and drivers. And in order to close this gender gap in ride sharing, it is important to first understand the differences in how men and women participate in the sharing economy. So, if you look at the frequency of travel in the UK, women travel less distance by all modes of transport and are more likely to travel as a car passenger than men. On the other hand, men are more likely to be driving when traveling by car. Only 2% of London's taxi drivers are women. And by the way, this is more than the percentage of female rideshare drivers here in Lahore. I understand that this is partly because of the fact that women in Pakistan are much less likely to own a car than women in the UK, but the unequal representation is also due to some common concerns of women in both markets. The purpose of travel also has a lot to do with gender rules defined by our societies. For instance, Pakistani women make fewer social, cultural, and work trips, but many are responsible for escorting children to school and hospital. Their travel behavior depends a lot on their role in family and household maintenance, and men's involvement is largely limited in these chores, but they're more likely to travel farther away from their homes for lucrative jobs. Many differences in travel behavior also arise due to our social norms. Surveys of over 11,000 male and female rideshare users from different countries have shown that some men question the suitability of driving as an occupation for women. Data analyzed by many companies shows that women tend to be safer drivers than men, but they still face discrimination on the road. 14% of the surveyed drivers have reported that some riders have cancelled on them only due to their gender. Another gender difference in ride sharing is around affordability. So cost is a key consideration for women riders. They tend to spend a higher proportion of disposable income than men on meeting travel needs, especially in emerging markets. But women riders tend to be less affluent than men, and expense is one of the top barriers preventing riders from taking more rides than they do. And now coming towards the most important concern of women, safety. So as you would know, security issues hit women more intensely than men. Women are more easily the targets of sexual assaults. Uber alone has reported near 3,000 sexual assaults per year during its rides in 2017 and 2018, and 92% of reported rape victims were riders. No wonder many women identify the lack of women drivers as a reason not to use the Uber app more often. They also prefer going with a woman driver at night or when they're taking a ride alone. At Safr, I've heard numerous accounts of women who have been verbally harassed, experienced non-consensual touching, and escaped kidnapping attempts while using other ride shares in Pakistan. I've also read emails from women in the US whose friends have been raped by rideshare drivers. On the driver's side, I've met women drivers who are not comfortable picking up passengers from neighborhoods a few miles away from their homes. Statistics show that women in many countries tend to drive more selectively than men, primarily because of their safety concerns. 64% of women drivers surveyed cite security concerns as the reason more women do not sign up to become drivers, and several do not drive more because of the same reason. Now, what impact does all of this have on the lives of women and the economies of countries in which they live? Many women fear being harassed even on their daily trips to college or work. They do not have what I would like to call the privilege most men have in going anywhere at any time of the day or night without the fear of being harassed. So they impose precautionary measures on themselves, which further limit their mobility. At Liaison, the platform I founded 5 years ago to sponsor education and other needs of less privileged children, I've seen girls make college choices that are not based on their past accomplishments and future goals, but the distance of college from home. The expenses are all covered by sponsors, but the girls' parents prefer sending them to colleges which are at a walking distance because they feel their daughters won't be safe using a rideshare or any form of public transport. They would rather escort the girls to colleges nearby. At Safr, I've heard from women who do not tell their families about the harassment they faced on their way back from work, for instance, because they think their families will tell them to quit their jobs and stay at home. While some women are hiding stories of the mental and physical torture inflicted on them in their rides, there are others who are totally giving up on their careers. And I think that for every woman or girl who quits work or gives up on a college she always wanted to attend, we need to remind ourselves that our systems of mobility are failing them. Women are constantly changing their plans for their careers and social activities and everything because of lack of safety in ride sharing and other forms of transport. They're compromising on the most fundamental services like healthcare. And this is not just affecting their personal lives. This is not just their problem. This is our problem. Everyone, women and men. Even if you do not know a single woman who does not have access to safe transportation, it is your problem. Because all women are part of the bigger system. If they're not fully participating in the public sphere, it is affecting your country and it is affecting you. As sexual harassment curtails women's movement in public spaces, it has the potential to negatively affect their participation in the public sphere. And low female labor force participation increases the employment to population gap. In 2012, the International Labour Organization estimated that an additional $1.6 trillion in GDP could be generated globally by reducing the employment to population gap. A report by the Asian Development Bank particularly identified lack of access to safe transport as a constraint to women's labor force participation. So women's safety issues and mobility are enormous, and they definitely need to be addressed. Safr is focused on women's safety. We are on a mission to redefine ride sharing for women. Our goal is to improve the lives of women everywhere through safe transportation and job creation. Our mobile apps and all of our processes are built with the needs of women in mind. By offering app features like gender preference, trusted drivers, and app communication and SOS to name a few, we try to ensure that our riders and drivers feel safe when they're traveling with us. We give them the choice to select who they feel comfortable traveling with. We help them ensure they are picking up or being picked up by the correct person and that their personal information is not shared with other people in the safer community. We create and use cutting-edge technology to try to make sure that no matter when and where our safer sisters are going, they have our back. When bringing drivers on board, we personally vet all applicants so our riders can have peace of mind, knowing that their drivers meet the safer standard. We incentivize our drivers more than the industry standard to provide best-in-class service. A study conducted by Uber has found a 7% pay gap in favor of men drivers of Uber. The company has also reported a gender turnover gap. Over a 6-month period, 60% of men quit and 76% of women. We pay more and meet our drivers often to hear about their concerns and ideas and make it a priority to retain and empower our incredible drivers. And Safr is not just about ride sharing. During the pandemic, we've also worked on launching curbside pickup and non-emergency medical transportation. So it's about addressing all the needs of women and their families. Together with our drivers and riders, we're building a community of like-minded people, including men who support our mission of the safety and empowerment of women. We aim to transform neighborhoods into sisterhoods where women feel as safe as their male counterparts and have the same freedom of movement as men have. Freedom of movement and participation in the public sphere translate into financial empowerment for women and prosperity of their societies. And it is not just the women in the societies at large that benefit when you invest your time and money into safe ride sharing or transport for women. You also benefit from it. In a country where women make up over 3 times the female population of the UK, and customer acquisition costs a tiny fraction of the cost in a country like the UK, investing your resources into women-focused platforms is a no-brainer. Your investment is likely to give a good return and create a much bigger impact than it would in a country with higher costs of operations. So it's a win-win. And I speak to you about investing your time, energy, and money into safe transport for women because most of you are already involved in the transport industry one way or another. You have access to data and the power to change it. As policymakers and leaders and whatever designations and roles you have in the mobility space in the UK, you're in a position of privilege. Your voice is powerful. Even if you're not directly associated with a women-focused organization like Safr, you may inadvertently be influencing lots of people around the world with everything you say or do. Your decisions and actions could have an impact way beyond your borders. So use your power to help empower women who do not have your advantages. The purpose of mobility shouldn't just be to move from one place to another, right? It should be to move without fear of being harassed. And mobility should be inclusive of all genders, men, women, LGBTQ, or whoever anyone chooses to identify as. So take a minute to think about the systems of mobility you're running or seeing in your country or anywhere in the world. And ask yourself if this is what you'd want to continue seeing or doing in future. Is this your true calling, or would you like to challenge the status quo? Thank you.